Listen up, because what I'm about to share with you isn't just a list of names. These are the 10 most feared snipers in human history. Men and women who became legends, ghosts on the battlefield, and in some cases, walking nightmares for entire armies. Some of them racked up hundreds of confirmed kills, others changed the course of wars with a single bullet. And one of them, we still don't even know who they are. If you've ever wondered what it takes to become one of the deadliest humans on Earth, stick around. Because by the end of this video, you're going to understand why these snipers weren't just soldiers. They were psychological weapons. They were myths made flesh. And in some cases, they were hunted by entire nations who desperately wanted them dead. But before we dive in, let me tell you something most people don't realize. Being a sniper isn't just about pulling a trigger. It's about patience. It's about discipline. It's about lying in the snow for days, covered in your own filth, waiting for one perfect moment. It's about making a decision in a split second that could save your entire unit or cost you your life. And the people on this list, they did that better than anyone else in history. So let's get into it, starting with number 10. At number 10, we have Juba, the Baghdad sniper. And here's the thing about Juba. Nobody knows who he was. Nobody knows if he was one person or a group of people. And that's exactly what made him so terrifying. During the Iraq War, American and coalition forces started getting picked off by an invisible enemy. Clean shots, professional kills, and then videos would surface online showing these sniper attacks, always with the same chilling signature. The insurgents called him Juba. The coalition forces called him a ghost. What made Juba different from other insurgent fighters was the precision. This wasn't spray and pray. This was calculated. This was someone who understood ballistics, wind drift, and timing. Soldiers reported feeling like they were being watched constantly. Convoys would slow down. Patrols would become paranoid, because nobody knew where Juba was or when he'd strike next. Some intelligence reports suggested Juba might have been trained by former Iraqi Republican Guard snipers. Others thought he was a foreign fighter. But the truth is, we still don't know. What we do know is that his videos spread fear faster than any weapon, and that's the thing about snipers. Sometimes, the fear they create is more powerful than the bullets they fire. Juba's identity remains a mystery to this day. But his impact, that's very real. He became a symbol, a reminder that in modern warfare, you don't need to see your enemy to be terrified of them. At number 9, we have Zhang Taofang from China. And if you think sniping is all about high-tech scopes and advanced optics, Zhang is about to prove you wrong. During the Korean War, Zhang was a Chinese People's Volunteer Army soldier. And in just 32 days, he scored 214 confirmed kills. Without a scope, let me say that again, 214 kills in 1 month using iron sights. Think about that for a second. Most modern snipers rely on magnified optics to hit targets at long range. Zhang didn't have that luxury. He used a standard issue rifle with basic sights. And he still became one of the deadliest snipers in history. His targets, mostly American and South Korean soldiers during the Battle of Triangle Hill. Zhang would position himself in elevated terrain, study enemy movement patterns, and wait. He understood something fundamental about sniping that many people overlook. It's not about the equipment, it's about reading the battlefield. Zhang's ability to judge distance, account for wind, and predict enemy behavior without technological assistance was almost supernatural. His fellow soldiers called him a natural marksman. His enemies called him something else, a nightmare. But here's what makes Zhang's story even more remarkable. He wasn't a career soldier. He was a peasant who joined the war to defend his country. And in 1 month, he became a legend. After the war, Zhang returned to civilian life and lived quietly until his death in 2007. But his record, that speaks for itself. Zhang Taofang proved that the deadliest weapon on the battlefield isn't always the most advanced one. Sometimes, it's just a man with iron sights and the patience of a saint. At number 8, we have Rob Furlong from Canada. And Rob didn't just become a feared sniper, he literally changed the history of long-range warfare with one shot. In March 2002, during Operation Anaconda in Afghanistan, Rob was part of a Canadian sniper team supporting coalition forces against Taliban fighters. The team was positioned on a mountainside, providing overwatch for advancing troops, and that's when Rob saw his target, an enemy combatant moving into position nearly 2.5 kilometers away. Now, let me put that distance into perspective. 2,430 meters. That's over 1.5 miles. At that range, gravity is pulling your bullet down, wind is pushing it sideways, and the target looks like a tiny dot. Most people can't even see that far without binoculars. Rob had to hit a moving human being. He was using a Macmillan Ty-50, a 50-caliber rifle designed for extreme long-range shooting. Rob calculated the wind. He accounted for the thin mountain air. He adjusted for bullet drop. And then he fired. The bullet flew for nearly 4 seconds. And when it landed, the target dropped. Confirmed kill. At that moment, Rob Furlong set a world record for the longest confirmed sniper kill in history. A record that stood for years. But here's the thing. Rob wasn't trying to set a record. He was trying to save lives. That Taliban fighter was preparing to engage coalition forces. If Rob hadn't taken that shot, soldiers would have died. And that's what separates snipers like Rob from everyone else. They make impossible decisions under impossible conditions. And they don't miss. Rob's shot didn't just change the war in Afghanistan. It changed how militaries around the world think about long-range combat. Suddenly, 2-kilometer kills weren't theoretical anymore. They were real. And Rob Furlong proved it. At number 7, we have Adalbert Waldron from the United States. And if you think sniping is hard on solid ground, try doing it from a moving boat. Adalbert was a sniper in the Vietnam War, and he holds the record as the top American sniper of that conflict with 109 confirmed kills. But what made Adalbert truly exceptional wasn't just the number. It was how he did it. Most of Adalbert's work was done during riverine operations in the Mekong Delta. That means he was shooting from boats, moving boats, on rivers, with waves, current, and unstable footing, and he still managed to hit targets on the shoreline with terrifying accuracy. Imagine trying to aim a rifle while standing on a rocking platform. Every movement of the boat throws off your shot. You have to predict not just where your target is going to be, but where your boat is going to be when you pull the trigger. It's one of the hardest shooting scenarios imaginable. And Adalbert made it look easy. His fellow soldier said he had an almost supernatural sense of timing. He could feel the rhythm of the boat, wait for the exact moment when everything aligned, and fire. And more often than not, the target went down. One of his most famous shots came when he spotted an enemy sniper hiding in a tree nearly 900 meters away from a moving boat. In the middle of a firefight, Adalbert took one shot. The enemy sniper fell out of the tree. Confirmed kill. The Viet Cong learned quickly to fear the American boats with snipers on board. Because they knew that if Adalbert Waldron was out there, nowhere was safe. Not the jungle, not the riverbanks, nowhere. Adalbert's skill earned him respect from both his comrades and his enemies. And his legacy continues to inspire military snipers to this day. Because he proved that even in the most unstable conditions, a true marksman can still find his target. At number 6, we have Carlos Hathcock, also known as White Feather. And Carlos isn't just a sniper legend. He's the sniper legend. The man who defined what it means to be a modern American sniper. Carlos served in the Vietnam War with the United States Marine Corps, and his official kill count is 93 confirmed kills. But that number doesn't tell the full story. Because Carlos took on missions that no one else would. Missions that seemed impossible. And he succeeded. One of the most famous stories about Carlos is the time he spent 4 days crawling 1,500 meters through enemy territory to take out a North Vietnamese army general. 4 days, crawling, through hostile jungle, with enemy patrols everywhere, and he did it alone. Carlos moved inches at a time. He couldn't make a sound. He couldn't stand up. He urinated on himself, because getting up to relieve himself would give away his position. And when he finally reached his firing position, he waited. He waited for the perfect moment. And when that general stepped into view, Carlos took the shot. 1 bullet. Mission complete. And then he crawled back out the same way he came in. But Carlos is most famous for something else. The white feather he wore in his hat. It became his signature. And it became a target. North Vietnamese troops were ordered to kill the American sniper with the white feather. They put a bounty on his head. They sent counter snipers after him. And Carlos didn't care. He kept wearing it. Carlos also set a record during the Vietnam War for the longest confirmed kill at the time, a shot at 2,500 yards. And here's the insane part. He killed an enemy sniper by shooting through the enemy's scope. The bullet traveled down the scope tube and killed the man behind it. 1 in a million shot. Carlos Halfcock became a legend, not just because of his skill, but because of his mindset. He understood that being a sniper wasn't about glory. It was about saving lives. Every enemy combatant he took out was one less threat to his fellow Marines. And he carried that responsibility with honor. After the war, Carlos trained the next generation of Marine snipers. His techniques, his philosophy, and his legend continue to shape military sniper programs around the world. And that white feather, it became a symbol of American sniper excellence. At number 5, we have Francis Pigamacaboe from Canada. And if you've never heard of Francis, that's a tragedy, because he's one of the most decorated Indigenous soldiers in history, and one of the deadliest snipers of World War I. Francis was an Ojibwe soldier from Ontario, and during the First World War, he served as a scout and sniper with the Canadian Expeditionary Force. His official kill count is 378, but many historians believe the real number is much higher. What made Francis so feared wasn't just his accuracy, it was his stealth. Francis grew up hunting in the forests of Canada. He learned traditional tracking, camouflage, and survival skills from his community. And when he went to war, he brought those skills with him. German soldiers called him a ghost. They couldn't see him, they couldn't hear him, but they knew he was there, because one by one, their men would drop. Clean headshots. No warning, just death. Francis also served as a scout and messenger, which meant he often operated alone behind enemy lines. He delivered critical intelligence, guided troops through dangerous terrain, and eliminated high-value targets. And he did it all while being one of the most hunted men on the Western Front. But here's what makes Francis's story even more remarkable. Despite his incredible service, he faced racism and discrimination when he returned to Canada. Indigenous soldiers were often ignored or mistreated by the government. But Francis didn't let that break him. He became a leader in his community and fought for Indigenous rights for the rest of his life. Francis Pigamacaboe is a reminder that some of the greatest warriors in history came from communities that were overlooked and underestimated. And on the battlefield, Francis was anything but overlooked. He was a legend. At number 4, we have Chris Kyle, the American sniper. And if you've heard of any modern sniper, it's probably Chris, because his story became a best-selling book and a blockbuster movie. But behind the Hollywood version is a man who was genuinely one of the most lethal snipers in American history. Chris was a Navy SEAL who served 4 tours in the Iraq War. His official kill count is 160 confirmed kills, but his self-reported number is 255. That makes him the deadliest sniper in U.S. military history. Chris operated primarily in urban environments, which is one of the hardest settings for a sniper. Cities are chaotic. There are civilians everywhere. Targets move unpredictably. And the enemy knows you're there. But Chris thrived in that chaos. He became so effective that Iraqi insurgents put a bounty on his head. They called him the Devil of Ramadi. They spread his description. They told fighters to watch for him. And still, Chris kept operating. Because he wasn't there for glory. He was there to protect his fellow SEALs. Chris's job was overwatch. That means he positioned himself in buildings and provided cover for ground troops. If an insurgent appeared with a weapon, Chris eliminated the threat. Simple as that. And he did it hundreds of times. But here's what people don't always understand about Chris. Every kill he made haunted him. Not because he regretted protecting his teammates, but because taking a life, even in war, leaves a mark. Chris struggled with PTSD after his service. And tragically, he was killed in 2013 by a fellow veteran he was trying to help. Chris Kyle's legacy is complicated. Some people see him as a hero. Others criticize the way his story was told. But one thing is undeniable. On the battlefield, Chris Kyle saved lives, and the men he served with will never forget that. At number 3, we have Lyudmila Pavlichenko, also known as Lady Death. And Lyudmila isn't just one of the most feared snipers of all time. She's the most successful female sniper in history. With 309 confirmed kills, Lyudmila was a Soviet sniper during World War II, and she fought primarily in the Siege of Sevastopol and the Battle of Odessa. She was 25 years old when the war started. And by the time she was pulled from the front lines, she had become a living legend. What made Lyudmila so effective was her mindset. She didn't see sniping as a job. She saw it as a duty. Nazi forces had invaded her homeland, and she was going to make them pay for every inch of Soviet soil they took. Lyudmila's tactics were methodical. She studied enemy positions. She waited for hours, sometimes days, for the perfect shot, and when she fired, she didn't miss. Her accuracy was so high that German forces started specifically hunting for her. They sent counter-snipers. They tried to take her out with artillery. They even broadcasted propaganda messages trying to convince her to defect. But Lyudmila didn't flinch. She kept fighting, and her kill count kept rising. One of her most famous engagements was a sniper duel with a German marksman that lasted days. They were both entrenched, both waiting for the other to make a mistake. Finally, Lyudmila spotted him. One shot. The duel was over. Eventually, Lyudmila was seriously wounded by mortar fire and evacuated from the front lines. The Soviet government realized she was too valuable to lose, so they sent her on a propaganda tour to the United States and other allied nations. She became the first Soviet citizen to be received by a U.S. president, Franklin D. Roosevelt. But here's the most powerful part of Lyudmila's story. She wasn't just a skilled sniper. She was a woman fighting in a war dominated by men, and she proved that gender has nothing to do with lethality. On the battlefield, Lyudmila Pavlichenko was death itself. At number 2, we have Vasily Zaitsev, the Soviet sniper who became a symbol of resistance during one of the bloodiest battles in human history. The Battle of Stalingrad. Vasily's official kill count is 242. But his legend is built on more than numbers. It's built on one of the most famous sniper duels in history, a duel with a German sniper known as Major Koenig. Now, historians debate whether Major Koenig actually existed or if he was propaganda. But here's what we know for sure. During the Battle of Stalingrad, Soviet and German snipers were locked in deadly cat and mouse games across the ruins of the city. And Vasily was one of the best. Vasily grew up hunting in the Ural Mountains. He learned to shoot as a child. And when he joined the Red Army, those skills made him a natural sniper. He understood patience. He understood camouflage. And he understood how to think like his enemy. The story goes that the Germans sent their best sniper, a man trained at the elite Zossen sniper school, to hunt down Vasily. For days, the two men stalked each other through the rubble of Stalingrad. Every move was calculated, every position was a gamble. And finally, Vasily outsmarted him. He used a decoy to draw out the German sniper. And when the enemy exposed himself for just a moment, Vasily took the shot. Whether or not that story is entirely true, Vasily Zaitsev's impact on the Battle of Stalingrad is undeniable. He trained other Soviet snipers. He developed tactics that are still taught today. And he became a symbol of Soviet resistance. A reminder that even in the darkest moments, one person with skill and courage can change the course of history. Vasily's story was immortalized in the film Enemy at the Gates. And while Hollywood took some liberties, the core truth remains: Vasily Zaitsev was one of the most feared snipers of World War II. And the Germans knew it. And now, at number 1, we have Simohe, the White Death, the deadliest sniper in human history, and quite possibly the most terrifying soldier who ever lived. Simo was a Finnish sniper during the Winter War, a brutal conflict between Finland and the Soviet Union that lasted from 1939 to 1940. In just 100 days, Simo had killed over 500 Soviet soldiers. 500. In 100 days. That's 5 kills per day. For over 3 months straight. Let me put that into perspective. Simo killed more people in 100 days than most snipers kill in their entire careers. And he did it in some of the harshest conditions imaginable. The Finnish winter, temperatures dropping to -40 degrees Celsius. Snow everywhere, and Simo used that snow to his advantage. He wore an all-white camouflage suit. He packed snow around his position to avoid leaving tracks. And here's the insane part: he refused to use a scope. Why? because the glint of a scope lens could give away his position. Instead, Simo used iron sights, just like Zhang Taofang, and he became a legend. Soviet soldiers were terrified of him. They called him the White Death. Because he was invisible, he would appear out of nowhere, kill multiple soldiers, and disappear back into the snow. The Soviets tried everything to kill him. They sent counter-sniper teams. They used artillery strikes. They even tried carpet bombing the areas where they thought he was hiding. And Simo survived. But here's the truly unbelievable part. Simo didn't just kill 500 soldiers with his rifle. He killed another 200 with a submachine gun during close quarters combat. That brings his total kill count to over 700 in 100 days. Eventually, the Soviets got lucky. On March 6, 1940, Simo was hit in the face by an explosive round. The left side of his jaw was completely destroyed. His fellow soldiers found him and rushed him to a field hospital. The doctors didn't think he would survive. But Simo didn't just survive. He woke up on the same day the Winter War ended, as if he refused to die until his country was safe. Simo lived until 2002. He was 96 years old when he passed away, and for the rest of his life, he remained humble. When people asked him how he became such a deadly sniper, he would shrug and say, "Practice." Simo Asia is the ultimate example of what one person can do when they combine skill, discipline, and an unbreakable will. He wasn't a superhero. He was a farmer who loved his country. And when that country needed him, he became a nightmare for his enemies. So there you have it, the 10 most feared snipers of all time. From Juba, the Ghost of Baghdad, to Simo Asia, the White Death. These men and women weren't just soldiers. They were legends, walking weapons, and reminders that in war, sometimes the most dangerous person on the battlefield is the one you never see coming. If you made it this far, drop a comment and let me know which sniper surprised you the most. And if you want more content like this, make sure to subscribe, because we've only just scratched the surface of the most insane stories in military history. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.